place, Cape Kennedy, Florida. The time, 7:12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The mission, a voyage into space and 62 orbits around the Earth. The spacecraft is a Gemini 4 capsule to be launched by a Titan booster. The crew, astronauts James A. McDivitt and Edward H. White. On this flight, 2 more giant steps toward man's conquest of the moon will be attempted. A rendezvous in space and a fantastic walk in space. Gemini control at the Cape continues the countdown.
T-minus 20 seconds and counting. All final checks in the countdown, still looking good at this time. Minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
A beautiful liftoff at 16 minutes after the hour. Climbing nicely. Roll program initiated. Mark 50 seconds. Guidance reports a go. Inside the Gemini 4, astronauts McDivitt and White prepare to go into an orbit around the Earth.
Capcom, Gemini 4, we're go for staging.
Roger.
Staging.
Roger, your staging is confirmed. Radio guidance system on and working very nicely. Trajectory plot is right on the line. Everything looks great, Jim.
Roger, Gus. My displays look just as good as those in Control Center.
Good.
It looks great up here. Stand by for final status check before engine cutoff.
Gemini 4 has reached point 8, 80% of velocity. Point 9, 100. Sustainer engine cutoff.
Capcom, Gemini 4, we're in orbit now and checking to make sure we've got a sound spacecraft. Turning around now, I can see the booster behind us. I'm thrusting toward it to stop my relative velocity.
Not enough, Jim.
Thrusting again. Looks like that'll do it. Now attempting to align the platform.
I think it's starting to fall away, Jim.
We're not in the same orbit. You want to go after that booster, Ed?
You mean rendezvous right off the bat?
It's falling away pretty fast. It'll be dark in 5 minutes.
Be rougher then.
Might be impossible after 5 or 6 orbits. Let's give it a try, Ed. Capcom, Gemini 4, we're starting after the booster.
Roger.
We're finally down to the altitude of the booster, and we're in darkness now.
I can see the light on the booster, Jim.
We can see the booster light flashing, but she's tumbling bad. Not stabilized at all. I can't make out the booster shape. All I can see is just one light. A little difficult to tell range and range rate in the dark.
Gemini 4, Carnarvon Capcom.
Come in, Carnarvon. This is Gemini 4.
Roger. Give me your status.
Roger, we are go. Everything looks great.
Roger, Gemini 4. You look good here at Carnarvon. What about the booster rendezvous?
Okay, the light is working fine, but I can't tell how far away we are from it. Probably about a half a mile, but it's still tumbling.
Looks like it's pulling away again, Jim. We're still not in the same orbit.
We're going to modify our orbit to stay with the booster.
Roger, Gemini 4.
The booster just popped out into the sunlight. I can see it out about a mile or so.
Yeah, it's a lot farther than we thought.
It really moved away from us in the dark.
It's still dropping down.
Yes, we're using more fuel than we planned on. I'll get Guaymas. Guaymas, Gemini 4.
Gemini 4, Guaymas Capcom.
Roger, Guaymas. We still have the booster, but it's out quite a ways. And it's taken a little more fuel than we anticipated.
Roger, I copy.
Can you give me a quick check on my orbit?
Roger, we're working on it.
Guaymas, do you want me to make a major effort to rendezvous the booster or save the fuel?
I guess we'll scrub it.
Okay. Give me a tag of my orbit quick as you can.
Roger, Gemini 4.
I guess we scratched one booster, Ed.
Too bad.
Gemini 4. Gemini 4. Houston Capcom.
Go ahead, Houston. Gemini 4.
Jim, we're giving you a go for your extravehicular activities at this time.
Okay.
We'll try to give you your orbit over the Canaries.
Okay, Houston. Roger. Well, Ed, we've got to go for your walk in space.
On the third orbit of Gemini 4, while traveling at 17,500 miles per hour and 120 miles above the Earth, astronaut Ed White will open the spacecraft's hatch and step out into the silent void for a walk in space. The temperature in space ranges from 250 degrees Fahrenheit on the sunny side to 150 degrees below zero on the shady side. And if a tiny meteorite should puncture the spacesuit, the astronaut's blood would boil in a few seconds, and he would explode like a toy balloon. As the Gemini 4 passes over Hawaii, the cabin is depressurized to zero, and the hatch is popped open.
Gemini 4, Hawaii, Capcom.
Come in, Hawaii, Gemini 4.
Roger, Gemini. We just got word from Houston. We're ready to have you get out whenever you are ready. Give us a mark when you egress the spacecraft.
Roger. We've got our go now. Is that right?
Affirmative.
Okay. We're about ready to start getting out. Ed's ready to egress right now. All set, buddy?
Yep. I'll go out and mount the outside camera.
Here you go, Ed. Keep up the chatter. I've got us on intercom record.
Okay. Hey, this is the life.
Don't forget what you're out there for, Ed. How's it going?
Jim, it's great.
You got your space gun?
Yeah?
Use the gun, Ed.
Okay. Hey, I didn't even have to push off, Jim.
Get over to my window.
I'm maneuvering just down the center line of the spacecraft. Now I'm yawing around to the left. We really got something with this space gun. I can control my movements completely.
You're starting to float up, buddy.
Yeah, that's the influence of the tether. It wants to drift me up. I'm maneuvering back toward the spacecraft now. With the gun.
I can't see you, Ed. I lost you.
I'm right over the hatch. Now I'm coming back out in front of the spacecraft.
Gemini 4, Houston Capcom.
Go ahead, Houston. Gemini 4.
Roger. Has Ed left the spacecraft, Jim?
Affirmative. He's out in front of the craft now, and he looks great. He's working his maneuvering unit, and it's really something.
Wish I had more air.
Ed, we're in contact with Houston.
I can control myself in both pitch and yaw translation. How does it look?
It's working.
Tell Ed to keep talking. We're receiving him through your Vox.
Okay. Ed, Houston's receiving us. Tell him what you think.
Capcom, the maneuvering unit is great. Only problem is I haven't got enough fuel. The spacecraft is now over my head. I'm looking right down on the coast of California. I'm in slow rotation to the right. There's absolutely no disorientation.
One thing about it, though, when Ed gets out there and starts whipping around, it sure makes this spacecraft hard to control.
Is Ed taking pictures?
I think he took pictures of the ocean.
Good. And you get some pictures of Ed.
Okay. Get out in front of the ship, Ed, where I can see you.
Okay. But I don't have the control with this tether that I had with the gun.
Tell Ed he's got about 5 more minutes.
Roger. Where are you, Ed?
Right now, I'm on top of the window.
Ed, roll around. Right now, we're pointing straight down to the ground.
Okay. Now I'm taking a look at the adapters. The thrusters are clean. I can see the plumes as you fire them. Hey, the sun in space is not blinding. It's quite nice. I can sit out here and see the whole coast of California.
Hey, Ed, smile. I want a close-up of you.
I'm looking right down your gun barrel, eh? Okay.
Hey, Ed, you smeared my windshield, you dirty dog.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly where we are, Ed, but it looks like we're over Texas. As a matter of fact, that looks like Houston down below. Hey, Gus, I don't know if you read us, but we're right over Houston.
We're looking right down on Houston.
Yeah, that's Galveston Bay right there. Hey, Ed, can you see it from your side of the spacecraft?
I'll get a picture.
Gemini 4, Houston Capcom.
Go ahead, Houston, Gemini 4.
The flight director says to get Ed back in the spacecraft, Jim.
Okay.
More pictures, Jim?
I don't know, Ed. We're coming over the west there, and Houston wants you back in the craft now.
I'm not coming in. This is fun.
Back in, Ed. Come on in.
I sure hate to come back in, but I'm coming.
You still have 3.5 days to go, buddy.
I'm coming in.
Okay.
You've got about 4 minutes to Bermuda. Gemini 4, Houston Capcom.
Okay, Ed, don't wear yourself out now. Just come on in.
Hey, whenever a piece of dirt or something goes by, it always heads right for the spacecraft door.
Okay, take it easy now, Ed.
Jim, I'm on top of the spacecraft now.
Okay, you're on top, but come on in then.
The handhold on the spacecraft is fantastic.
Come on in, Ed. Come on in here.
All right.
Come on in. Let's get back in here before it gets dark.
Okay, but it's the saddest moment of my life.
Well, you're going to find it sadder when we have to come down with this thing.
Gemini 4, Houston Capcom.
Houston, Gemini 4. I'm putting all this down. No time to talk now, Gus. I'm pulling in the air hose. Any messages for us?
Yeah, get Ed back in. Are you getting him back in?
Yeah, he's standing in the seat now. His legs are below the instrument panel.
Okay, get him back in. You're going to be over Bermuda in about 20 seconds.
Okay, Ed's coming in. He's getting back in the spacecraft.
Roger.
Astronaut Ed White has completed his spectacular walk in space, and the spacecraft Gemini 4 appears to be on its way to a happy landing at the end of a highly successful flight through space. It is the last day in orbit, but there is trouble aboard GT4. A small computer that was designed to guide the spacecraft's re-entry has failed, and the whole world grows tense with anticipation of possible re-entry trouble.
Houston, Gemini 4.
This is Houston Capcom. Go ahead, Gemini 4.
Roger, Capcom. Gus, it's pretty obvious the computer isn't working. Why don't we just turn it off?
Gemini 4, this is Houston. We'd like to go ahead and leave the computer on. Can't go into detail now. Jim?
Okay, but don't forget we want to be recovered in a hurry.
Roger. They're on their way. All you've got to do is hit the spot.
Roger.
And Jim, this looks like about an 8G re-entry.
That's too much for an old man like me, Gus.
You can hack it.
With the computer out of order, instructions are radioed to Gemini 4 from NASA's Mission Control Center in Houston. McDivitt has been ordered to take manual control of the spacecraft and fire his retro rockets on oral commands from the ground. McDivitt is flying by wire, but the ignition system starts 1 second too soon, and this small mistake will cause the Gemini 4 to head for a splashdown 56 miles short of the planned recovery area.
Houston, Capcom, Gemini 4.
Gemini 4, this is Houston.
We're ready to start re-entry. Firing retro rockets. All 4 rockets fired okay. It's a very nice feeling. We're coming down. We don't know where, but we're coming down. I hope it's near the aircraft carrier.
We'll have a helicopter over you in 5 minutes.
That'll be fine with us. A retro adapter jettisoned, spacecraft stable. As we enter the atmosphere, the leading edge of the spacecraft is beginning to glow. It's a bright flame. The front part of the retro adapter is burning up. We can see pink flames coming up around our spacecraft. Now it looks orange-colored. Now it's getting redder. Now we see green. It's the most beautiful sight I've ever seen. We can see the ground as we pass across the United States. At 50,000 feet, we're putting out the drogue chute. At 10,600 feet, we're putting out the main parachute. I just heard one of the rescue planes say we have them in sight. It's a mighty fine feeling. We're splashing down.
Within 5 minutes after splashdown, helicopters will drop frogmen rescue teams around Gemini 4, and within a short time, astronauts Jim McDivitt and Ed White will be given a hero's welcome aboard the U.S. aircraft carrier Wasp. The United States has made another important step toward a landing on the moon. Today, here at Cape Kennedy, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration will launch the Gemini 5 spacecraft on the longest manned space flight to date. The Gemini 5, with command pilot Gordon Cooper and pilot Charles Pete Conrad, will attempt to orbit the Earth 121 times in 191 hours in a test of man's ability to live in space for 8 days, the time it will take our astronauts to fly to the moon and back. The countdown has started, all systems are go, and the gigantic Titan II missile is ready to lift the Gemini 5 into an orbit around the Earth. where the two astronauts will fly over 3 million miles before splashdown in the Atlantic Ocean. The countdown continues.
This is Gemini Launch Control. We are now at T-minus 15 seconds and counting. All systems are go. We pick up the count at 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Lift off. We're off on the hour. Goal program initiated. Gordon Cooper reports. Goal program complete. Pitch program has been initiated. Looking very nice at 42 seconds. Coming up on 50 seconds. Mark 50 seconds. 1 minute into the flight. Our velocity is about 1,350 miles per hour. G-forces 2. Coming up on 2 minutes. Our velocity is 3,750 miles per hour.
In a few minutes, the astronauts in Gemini 5 and the Mission Control Center will exchange opinions on whether it's go or no-go for orbit.
4 minutes into the flight. Our velocity is 9,600 miles per hour. Flight director at Mission Control gives a go for sustainer engine cutoff. 5 minutes into the flight. Velocity is 13,675 miles per hour. 80% of velocity for orbit. We are go for the flight. We have not yet heard from the astronauts in Gemini 5. We have an orbit of 99 miles at perigee, 230 miles at apogee.
Astronauts Gordon Cooper and Charles Conrad are now orbiting the Earth at 17,500 miles per hour, on their way for 121 revolutions around the Earth in 8 days. 12 minutes into the flight, and GT5 is halfway to Africa. During the first 5 hours, the astronauts will eject from the spacecraft a special piece of equipment called a radar evaluation pod, REP for short. Equipped with a radar transponder and flashing lights, REP will be put into orbit around the Earth. Gemini 5 will later attempt a rendezvous with the pod. Inside the spacecraft, astronauts Gordon Cooper and Charles Conrad prepare to eject the radar evaluation pod.
Gemini 5, Houston, Capcom here.
Houston, Capcom, Gemini 5.
Has the radar evaluation pod been ejected?
Affirmative. Rep is out. It's riding approximately 1 mile to the left of the spacecraft.
Roger, Gemini 5. We copy. What is position of the rep?
It's still drifting away from us.
Roger. Gemini 5, put fuel cell heater to on position.
Roger.
So far, so good. Gemini 5 is now 3 hours into the mission. But the flight director at Mission Control in Houston watches the readings on the control panel anxiously. It's determined that there has been a steady decrease in pressure in the oxygen side of the fuel cell. The problem seems to be causing a loss in electric power. This can mean trouble, since Gemini 5 uses fuel cells instead of batteries for power.
Gemini 5, Houston.
Houston, Capcom, Gemini 5.
Pete, can you give me a reading on your fuel cell oxygen pressure?
Say again.
I say, give reading on fuel cell oxygen pressure.
Roger. Fuel cell pressure is down to 150 and falling slowly.
Roger, 150 and falling. Okay, let's go to manual on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark.
Roger.
How does the pressure stand now, Gemini 5?
It stands at around 140 and still falling.
Roger, we copy. We'll watch this fuel cell situation for another 30 minutes.
There is no doubt now that there is trouble aboard the Gemini 5. Failure in a fuel cell heater has caused a drop in pressure from a normal reading of 800 pounds to a low of 140 pounds. This is causing a serious loss of electrical power that operates the spacecraft.
Gemini 5, Houston here.
Houston, Gemini 5.
Could you give us a fuel cell pressure readout, please?
Roger, Houston. 120 pounds seems to be what it's hanging in at.
Gemini 5, suspend all further maneuvers in the radar pod exercise. We'll watch this thing closely, and if it drops too low, we may have to scrub the mission.
Roger, Houston. We copy.
The spacecraft is now over Louisiana. If the decision to splash down is made, Gemini 5 must come down in the Atlantic this orbit, or it will not be able to land in the planned recovery area for several orbits, since each orbit follows a different course around the Earth. A decision must be made, and quickly.
Houston, Capcom, Gemini 5.
Gemini 5, this is Houston here. Go ahead.
Roger. The fuel cell pressure is down to 105, 105, and still falling.
Roger, 105 and falling.
We decided we may have to go for a re-entry shortly.
Roger, Gemini 5, we agree.
If the fuel cell pressure does stabilize, does it look like we might have a chance to continue the flight?
We might be able to do that, Gemini 5. We're working on another flight plan for you.
Roger.
Gemini 5, you may continue flight in a powered-down condition. If trouble in the fuel cell continues, you may have to splash down on the third orbit.
Roger, we copy.
Although the flight has not been scrubbed officially, planes are being deployed from Hickam Field in Hawaii and directed to proceed to an alternate recovery area for sixth orbit recovery, should that become necessary. The planes are taking off at this time for a point 490 miles north of Hawaii. An oil tanker, the Bankside K, is in the area now. 3 hours and 42 minutes into the flight. Flight Director Christopher Columbus Kraft at Mission Control Houston reports a continued drop in fuel cell pressure, and a sixth orbit splashdown in the Pacific is indicated. As the situation worsens, no one is leaving Mission Control. We have word that the Navy destroyer Taylor is steaming out to a position north of Hawaii. The planes racing to the splashdown area are carrying survival experts, doctors, scuba divers, and radar experts.
Carnarvon, this is Gemini 5.
Gemini 5, we'd like a readout on your fuel cell pressure.
Roger, Carnarvon. The fuel cell pressure is 6060.
Roger, we copy. Fuel cell pressure is 60.
At the splashdown point, 490 miles north of Hawaii, the USS Goldsboro, a missile destroyer, has been brought down from the north, and more planes have been dispatched from Hawaii. The spacecraft is on its fifth orbit around the Earth, and still no change in the fuel cell problem. No decision has been made on whether to continue the flight or splash down.
Gemini 5, this is Houston. Gemini 5, this is Houston here.
Houston, Gemini 5.
Could you give us a fuel cell pressure readout?
Roger, Houston. It seems to be hanging in at 60. 60.
Well, looks like we may have a situation that's stabilized, Pete. I'd like your opinion on going on another day under these circumstances. What do you think?
Gordo says we might as well try it. I'm game.
Okay, let's look at this thing for another orbit.
Roger.
GT5's attempt to set a new world's record for manned flight has been given a fighting chance. Mission Control at Houston has okayed another orbit. The spacecraft has turned off most of its electrical power to conserve electricity. But with electrically powered equipment off, control of GT5 is decreased, and the spacecraft at this moment is drifting and tumbling on through space on its fifth revolution around the Earth.
Gemini 5, Houston here.
Houston, this is Gemini 5.
Gemini 5, this is Houston here. Do you read?
Houston, Capcom, this is Gemini 5.
Gemini 5, Houston. You're coming through very garbled and very weak. Can you give us your fuel cell pressure?
Roger. It has been holding at 60. 60.
Roger, Gemini 5. Understand it's holding. Thank you.
GT5 is now entering the most critical moments of the flight. A decision must be made in the next few minutes before start of the sixth orbit. After the sixth orbit, the spacecraft will be in the wrong orbit for optimum safe recovery.
Hawaii, Gemini 5.
Gemini 5, Hawaii here.
What does it look like for another pass, Hawaii?
You are go for one more day in orbit. Go for 18 more orbits, Gemini 5.
Understand, we copy, Hawaii.
Astronauts Gordon Cooper and Charles Conrad float on through space, tumbling, drifting, waiting to see if the spacecraft can maintain orbital flight, or will they have to splash down far from the planned recovery area. Undaunted by mechanical troubles, the two astronauts continue to make high-altitude photographs and test man's ability to adapt to long periods of weightlessness. But at last, the faulty fuel cell seems to be stabilizing itself, and the spacecraft has been given a go for another day in orbit. It is now 119 hours and 6 minutes since Gemini 5 lifted off Pad 16 at Cape Kennedy. In a few minutes, history will be made. The United States has just set a new world record for manned spaceflight. On and on goes GT5. The astronauts watching a sunset or a sunrise every 45 minutes. Each orbit bringing them closer to their goal of 8 days in space. Victory is in sight. But then...
Gemini 5, Houston here.
We've spotted quite a hurricane building up off South America. It's quite a storm. The lightning is lighting up the inside of our spacecraft.
Roger, Gemini 5. We copy.
Flight control in Houston has been advised of the beginning of Hurricane Betsy, and the planned recovery area is abandoned in favor of a new recovery zone out of danger of the oncoming storm.
Gemini 5, Carnarvon. Gemini 5, Carnarvon.
Carnarvon, Gemini 5.
Flight control orders a splash down at the end of the 120th orbit. You will start reentry over Hawaii. The aircraft carrier Champlain is standing by in the new recovery area.
As Gemini 5 passes over Hawaii and enters darkness, re-entry begins. During the pass over the United States, the retro rockets are fired.
Houston, Capcom, Gemini 5. Retro rockets fired. Re-entry maneuver on the money.
Roger, Gemini 5. You're looking good here.
With the bottom of the spacecraft turned toward Earth, Gemini 5 plunges into the Earth's atmosphere like a flaming meteor.
Houston, Capcom, Gemini 5.
Gemini 5, Houston here.
We're at 60,000 feet. Small drogue chute deployed.
Roger, Gemini 5. Aircraft carrier Champlain in recovery area.
Roger, Houston. 10,000 feet, and we're deploying the main sheet.
At 9,700 feet, the big orange and white nylon chute blossoms open and floats the spacecraft down to a gentle splashdown in the Atlantic.
Gemini 5, Houston, Capcom.
Houston, Gemini 5. We're down and standing by.
Roger, Gemini 5. The copter is on the way.
Roger. We have them in sight. They just passed over. We can see frogmen in the water now. Thanks, buddy.
2 American astronauts have just ended a most remarkable adventure. 8 days in space. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Gordon Cooper and Navy Lieutenant Commander Charles Conrad have written space history and made another giant step toward the day when the United States will land astronauts on the moon.